Welcome to The Explainer. If you're gearing up for your exams and need to master the concepts of good and evil, human rights, and social justice from a theological perspective, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, I'm going to be your exam coach. We're diving straight into the heart of a massive topic, Catholic social teaching. We're going to take a really structured journey, starting from ancient, foundational theology and going all the way to modern, boots-on-the-ground, charitable action. By the end of this explainer, you'll have a clear, highly visual roadmap of absolutely everything you need to know to ace those exam questions. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Origins of CST. 2. Imago Dei and Dignity. 3. Gaudium et Spes. 4. Faith in Action. And finally, 5. An exam recap. But before we get bogged down in the definitions, let me just pose a quick question to get us thinking. What exactly does a 19th century pope have to do with modern disaster relief? I know, it sounds a bit like a trick question, but as we go through this material, you're going to see a direct, unbroken line from historical figures examining social issues right through to the emergency aid and sustainable development happening across the globe today. Right. Section 1. The origins of Catholic social teaching. So where does all of this actually come from? For your exams, you need really crisp, clear definitions. Catholic social teaching, or CST, is essentially a guide for Catholics on how to live out their faith in the real world. According to our sources, it's rooted in Scripture, formed by the wisdom of church leaders, and heavily influenced by grassroots movements. The core of CST is really about how Catholics are called to interact with and stand up for other humans, particularly those who are in the most need. Now, quick pro tip for your exams. You'll also see the word encyclical come up a lot. You can think of an encyclical simply as a formal letter written by the Pope. It addresses a matter of faith or explicitly calls Catholics to action regarding the social issues of their day. Now, the first modern instance of Catholic social teaching can actually be traced back to Pope Leo XIII. He essentially became the first modern champion for workers' rights within the church. He used his massive platform to speak out in favor of oppressed factory workers who were demanding basic justice from their, let's say, reluctant employers. It's just a great historical anchor to use in an essay, the church actively stepping in to defend the working class during the industrial age. Moving on to Section 2, Imago Dei and Dignity. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that if you want to understand the true why behind any Catholic charity work, you absolutely must flag this concept in your notes. Imago Dei literally means image of God. The sources tell us this is the belief that all humans possess a rational soul and are created in God's likeness. And because of this, every single human life is considered sacred. This isn't just a nice metaphor, right? It's a theological absolute that demands the equal dignity of all persons. Basically, if everyone is made in the image of God, then everyone is unique, everyone is equal, and everyone's life holds profound value. All right, Section 3, we're looking at a crucial teaching, Gaudium et Spes. When you get asked to cite sources of authority regarding human rights or social order, this is your absolute go-to document. Let's look closely at paragraph 29 of Gaudium et Spes. It says, every type of discrimination, whether based on sex, race, color, social condition, language, or religion, is to be overcome and eradicated as contrary to God's intent. I mean, that is a powerful, uncompromising quote. The teaching here is that because we share that basic equality from being made in God's likeness, discrimination isn't just unfair, it directly violates God's natural order. The text insists that human institutions have a strict duty to safeguard these basic rights under every single political system. Gaudium et Spes also tackles the concept of peace over in paragraph 78. Now, I want you to highlight this exact phrase for your exam notes. Peace is not merely the absence of war. Instead, it is rightly and appropriately called an enterprise of justice. Listen, this is a classic exam trap. Students so often write that peace just means people aren't fighting. But Catholic social teaching says, no, that's nowhere near enough. True peace cannot happen unless fundamental personal rights are honored, personal well-being is safeguarded, and there is actual, tangible justice in society. So, peace, justice, and reconciliation, they require active effort. It means men and women freely sharing their talents and the riches of their inner spirits. It requires genuine mutual respect. In fact, Gaudium et Spes teaches that a firm determination to respect other people's dignity and the studied practice of brotherhood are absolutely necessary. Ultimately, the text notes that true peace goes way beyond what justice alone can provide. It is the ultimate fruit of love. Interestingly, it also mentions that Catholic social teaching flat out condemns the arms trade and supports those who refuse to take up arms based on their conscience. Which brings us to Section 4, Faith in Action through Charities. We're transitioning here from the what to the how. How do these ancient beliefs translate into real, physical action today? Well, the answer is Catholic charities. The sheer belief in Imago Dei compels these organizations to act. Just like the parable of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus calls everyone to respond to those in need, these charities help people regardless of gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, or political views. Because they believe everyone is made in God's image, fighting poverty and giving practical assistance isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a strict, theological requirement to help people retain their sacred human dignity.
Let's look at two specific examples you definitely need for your exam, starting with CAFORD. CAFORD stands for the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, started by bishops back in 1962. They operate on a massive global scale. They've got disaster funds to send emergency aid. We're talking food, medicines, shelters, blankets to victims of natural disasters and war refugees. But they also focus heavily on long-term sustainable development so less developed countries can actually support themselves. And interestingly, they also link human poverty directly to environmental concerns. Because caring for our common home is part of the teaching, CAFORD runs environmental campaigns like One Climate, One World, and they've even partnered up with wider secular movements like Make Poverty History.
Now contrast that massive global reach with SVP, the St. Vincent de Paul Society. SVP focuses entirely on grassroots, community-level support right here within the UK. They provide highly practical assistance to the vulnerable. This includes visiting the sick in hospitals or hospices and checking in on housebound elderly people to prevent them from feeling totally isolated. They do soup runs in disadvantaged areas, offer training for literacy and debt advice, and even organize children's camps and holiday schemes to give poor families or young family carers a much-needed break. They even fundraise in schools through wonderfully enthusiastic groups like the Mini-Vinnies.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole point, the dual scale of Catholic social teaching. You've got CAFOD looking outward, tackling international emergencies, sustainable global development, and climate change. And on the flip side, you have SVP looking inward at the local community, tackling personal loneliness, local poverty, and individual debt. But both of them are driven by the exact same principle, recognizing the Imago Dei in every single person they meet.
All right, final stretch. Section 5, the ultimate exam recap on CAFOD versus SVP. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today. I highly recommend you take a mental snapshot of this table, or even pause the explainer right now and write it down. If you get an exam question asking how Catholic charities put their faith into action, this is exactly what you use to structure your answer. In the left column, we have CAFOD. Think global. Overseas development, disaster and refugee emergency funds, fighting global poverty, and environmental campaigns like One Climate, One World. Then in the right column, we have SVP. Think local. Community-based support in the UK, visiting the sick and isolated, running local soup runs, providing debt advice, and organizing children's camps. If you can confidently contrast these two approaches while linking them both back to Gaudium et Spes and Imago Dei, well, you're going to write a fantastic essay. We started this whole session by asking how a 19th century Pope's encyclical connects to modern disaster relief, and now we know. It's all bound together by the unbroken thread of human dignity. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. Beyond the exam paper and way beyond the grades, when you look around at the people in your own life, how are you going to apply these lessons of human dignity and Catholic social teaching in your own community? Thank you so much for learning with me today. Good luck with your exams and stay curious.